No,
It's your, whatever you're comfortable with.
yeah.
The group, be ready to go?
네,
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, great. Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for being here. Please feel free to grab a bite to eat. We thank you so much for your hospitality today. My name is John Catherwood-Ginn, and I work across the street at the Moss Arts Center. And we're really delighted to welcome you here today for this special conversation with our guests from Seongbokdong Bidulki Theater. Yeah, you can clap. I already tell one. So before we get started today with this conversation with our special guests, I would like to share, first of all, some thank yous. First and foremost, of course, the wonderful hosts here at the APITA Plus Center. This is one among a number of different programs that the APITA Plus Center has hosted in partnership with the Moss Arts Center over the years. And so we're so thankful for your continued partnership. Nina, Teresa, thank you again, as well as the student employees who've been assisting to make these programs so successful. In addition, of course, I want to thank members of Seongbokdong Bidulki Theater, or SBT for short, for making this time for us. They just traveled here. And so, as you might imagine, they're right now, it feels like 12 in the morning, 1 in the morning. So we're going to do our best to stay fresh for this conversation. Finally, I'd like to thank a number of different organizations that are supporting the presentation of SBT's performance at the Moss Arts Center. Those include the Korean Cultural Center of New York, the Ministry of Culture, Sports, and Tourism of Korea, as well as the Korean Foundation for International Cultural Exchange. That being said, members of SBT are here to present a performance at the Moss Arts Center, which is taking place Wednesday and Thursday night. It's an original adaptation of the classical Greek tragedy of Medea, penned by Euripides, but it is a radical reimagining. It's called MEDEA on Media. Say that 10 times fast. And it is designed to sort of explore facets of the story of Medea through the lens of a variety of different styles, how it intersects with media, and arguing the ways in which different media actually drive her to commit the tragedy that concludes the piece. So if you're familiar with Medea, expect a total radical reimagining that I think you'll find captivating, interesting. And if you've never encountered Medea before, I can imagine no better way to encounter it than through SBT's really unique approach to theater making. A little bit about the company, and then we'll hand things over to have a quick conversation. So SBT is based in Seoul. Their artistic director is Kim Hyun-tak, who's right here in the black sweater. And among other projects, Medea is what they're here to perform, but the company, among other things, has really defined themselves by their adaptation of a variety of pieces. Some from the Western canon, like plays you might be familiar with, like Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, William Shakespeare's Othello. They've adapted Kafka's Metamorphosis, as well as The Maids by Jean Genet, the modern French masterpiece. But they also have done radical reimaginings of modern Korean dramas. So this is a really dynamic company that's invested in the questions of how style can kind of unlock parts of stories that we might think are familiar in fresh ways. So to get things started, the idea is that this is kind of an informal conversation. So I've got some questions just to kind of get the ball rolling, but I'd encourage you, as you're curious, please pose questions to our guests here for our conversation. So maybe a good place to start was if members of the group would just go down and introduce themselves and say a little bit about what they do with SBT.
그냥 소개 간단히 하면서 SBT에서 뭐 하시나 그거 말씀해 주시면 네.
저는 성북동 비둘기에서 연출을 하고 있고 전반적으로 작품을 좀 아이디어를 이제 구현해가는 그런 역할을 하고 있습니다.
Okay, so
can people hear back there? If not, we have we have a microphone.
Yeah. If you would maybe Cecilia, if you want to.
For that very reason.
I'll say Cecilia Lee is serving as our translator today as well.
Hello, everybody. So I'm just going to, translate what Mr. Kim just said. That he is the director of the theater company Seongbokdong Bidulki, and he's the one who comes up with all the ideas. And he's been doing this for about 20 years.
저는 그때 성북동 비둘기에서 같이 연출하고 20년 교과를 있는 배우 김민호 이번에 메디아 미디어에서 메디아에서
Okay, so her name is Mio Kim, and she has been with the company for about, the past 20 years, working with, Mr. Kim here. And, she will be playing, Medea, the role of Medea on Wednesday and Thursday night. So, and she has been working on many, many different projects with Mr. Kim.
안녕하세요. 저는 곽영현이고요. 여기에서 이제 선배님들과 함께 저는 이렇게 연가의 자리를 하게 되었는데 이제 곧 공연하니까 많이 보러 와주시고 그리고 저는 5년차 된 배우입니다.
Okay. So her name is Myo and I'm so sorry, Younghan. And she's been with the company for about 5 years, and she just really, really wants everybody to come and see the play. Tuesday and Thursday night, and she is very, very honored to be here with everybody here.
네, 반갑습니다. 저는 이름은 이진형이고요. 한국동비둘기에는 2006년부터 한국동비둘기의 남자 배우고 이번 공연에서는 크레온 역할을.
Okay, so that's Mr. Din Sung, and 여기는 얼마큼 시작했죠?
2006년부터.
So he's been with the company since 2006, and he will be playing the role of King Crayon at the performance. So, and he's very, very happy to be here to, be with everybody at Virginia Tech.
Thank you. Well, maybe a good place to start would be, I'd love to know what inspired Mr. Kim to start the company, and then for Myok, Younghyun, and Jin-sung, what attracted them to join SBT?
SBT를 어떻게 시작하셨는지, 그리고 나머지 분들은 SBT에 어떻게 도움받게 되셨는지
아주 오래된 얘기인데
It's been a long time. Yeah, it started a long ago.
제가 SBT를 시작하게 된 건 제 생각을 무대에 표현하는 일을 많이 해봤었어요. 다른 팀들에서 20년 전에. 근데 제 생각과 좀 부딪히고 다른 것들이 너무 많아서 제 생각을 좀 구현할 때 단체를 새롭게 만들어서 하는 건 어떨까 해서 제가 이제 워낙 미디어 노출이 많이 되는 혼자서 TV나 이런 걸 많이 보고 듣는 시간이 많다 보니까 거기에서 나오는 작품을 구현하는 그만의 노하우 그 전에 있던 단체나 창작자들하고는 더 거리가 있어서 제가 하고 싶은 걸 좀 하고 싶은 사람들하고 만나서 해야 돼요.
Mute. Sorry about that.
We have an additional guest.
So,
Sorry.
right, so he basically started at SBT 20 years ago because he wanted to basically do what he really wanted to do, and with the other companies that he was involved with, it was kind of hard to just put all of his ideas and all of his vision into them, working with other people. So he wanted to form his own group, own company to, with people who shared, the similar vision of that, because the form of media is very important to him, and he spent a lot of time just like, like we're all exposed to so much of like, TV and, all of the other things. And he wanted to find a group of people who shared that same vision and try to work with them and, try to put his, what he really wanted to do into it.
저는 원래는 이제 다른 팀이랑 한 2번 정도 이제 그 팀이랑 같이 작업을 했었는데 조금씩 짧은 나서 할게요.
Yeah, because it was getting too long, so I'm just gonna cut it a little bit so that I can, translate, and then we can go back to the, So she spent a lot of time working with the other theater companies before she met him.
그러다가 이제 연출하고 작업을 하면서 그 전에 있었던 제가 제가 했던 그때 작품들은 조금 드라마를 그대로 현실적으로 재현하는 그런 스타일이거든요.
So the other teams that she worked with before she met him, Mr. Kim, that they were going in the direction of just staying true to the text more.
근데 이제 연출하고 작업을 할 때는 이제 그 작품을 작품 그대로 하지 않는 뭐 다른 아이디어도 한다던가 아니면 신체적으로 한다던가.
And she was very attracted to his Mr. Kim's idea of just sort of I mean you'll see when you see the play how there's like a lot of deconstruction and reconstruction of the original text. So she really liked how those things were that his vision of doing that.
그런 사람들이 이제 저한테는 너무 잘 맞았고 재밌고 일단 저한테 너무 재밌고 즐거운 작업이었어요. 그런 식으로 하다 보니까 연출하고 작업을 계속 이런 식으로 했거든요.
And she was also attracted to the fact that there was a lot of body movement. And so for her, when she started working with Mr. Kim, it became a very, like a happy thing. And, it freed her as an artist. So that's why she has been with them all this time.
참고로
예.
이분 김민혁 씨 피지컬을 처음 보고 깜짝 놀랐고 저 배우가 제가 하는 거를 미친 듯이 할 수 있겠구나. 굉장했다고.
Okay, so he's saying that when he first met Mio, he was just blown away by how crazy she could be. And that's when he thought, this is it, I found the right person. So, they've been together since then.
저는 아무래도 학교를 졸업한 지 얼마 안 됐어요.
So it hasn't been long since she got out of school.
그래서 여기 전공한 모든 학생들과 좀 공감을 할 수 있겠지만 이제 아티스트로 이제 제가 새로운 프로 무대에 적응을 해야 하잖아요. 근데 이곳이 가장 한국에서 제일 좋은 곳이라고 생각했어요.
Okay, so she graduated not too long ago and she was looking for basically a theater group to work with. And then, when she saw his vision once again, she really wanted to start with a group that does all kinds of use all of their creativity and all the craziness. So she was drawn to that also. So that's how she got started with MEDEA.
그래서 서로 영감을 주고받고 또 이제 뭔가 철학이 있고 고유의 정체성들을 좀 잘 존중해 주면서 함께 작업할 수 있는 최고의 그룹이라고 생각합니다.
So she thinks that SBT is a great environment for anybody to work in. There's definitely a lot of equality, within the group, within the company, and the fact that everybody shares the same philosophy and the same embracing of just a very just letting the creativity go as far as possible. So she is happy being with everybody here.
제가 먼저 한번 이 친구는 그냥 흔하게 있는 분이 아니어서 처음에 되게 경계했다고 왜 좋아하지? 이런 게 흔치 않은데 누구 생각을 함께 공유하기가 제 생각을 흔치 않았는데 어렸죠. 어린 친구가 와서 여기 너무 좋아요 하니까 저로서는 의심했다고. 근데 하면 할수록 너무
So
대단하시고.
Mr. Kim was very suspicious of Young coming because she's a young girl and she came and she said, this is the best theater company, and he's like, why? And this is not that easy to like here, that sort of thing. So, but he was very impressed that she chose, the group, and obviously they've been doing a lot of things together, but there was a little bit of suspicion in the beginning.
네, 그래서 여기서 나이도 제일 많고 이 얘기도 제일 길 것 같아요.
Okay, so he's got a long story because he is the oldest member. Get ready.
네, 저는 이 연기를 대학에서 전공하지 않았고 엔지니어링, 공동공학, 네이버 아키텍처를 전공했습니다.
So he actually did not major in acting at all. So he was an engineering student.
네이버 아키텍처.
Naval architecture. Okay.
그런데 이제 전공을 하면서 그 사회 활동으로 연극을
So while he was studying engineering as an, like an extracurricular thing, as like a club activity, he was doing a little bit of acting.
예, 그리고는 졸업을 하고는 그러니까 엔지니어의 길을 쭉 걸었어요. 그전에 사업 했었다.
Okay, so after finishing engineering, so he worked in the field, and he had his own business, and he was just living his life.
그런데 이제 항상 이제 연극을 하고 싶은 그런 욕망은 이제
But then there was that day, he was like, I want to be on the stage.
그런데 이제 2005년인가 그때 연극 활동을 대학교 때 같이 했던 후배 연출이 연극을 같이 하자고 권해서 두세 작품을 같이 했었어요.
So in 2005, his friend from college who was in the theater, asked him if he wanted to work on a couple of projects with them, and he decided to work on it. So he did 두 개.
Yeah,
So he worked on like 3 plays with the friend.
그런데 아무래도 굉장히 오랜만에 다시 연극을 하고 그리고 학교에서 연극을 전공하는 것을 하지 않았기 때문에 어떤 그 체계적인 연기에 대한 그 공부랄까 그것이 좀 아쉬웠어요.
And because he didn't study acting in college, and he hadn't done because he was actually just working as an engineer. So it was kind of it was difficult for him to be on the stage with the professional actors all of a sudden.
근데 그 당시에 저희 김현탁 연출님이 기성 배우들을 재교육하는 그런 작은 아카데미를 운영했었어요. 그러니까
하고 있는
신인 배우가 아닌.
아.
그런데 그때 누가 이제 저를 그 아카데미에 소개해서 거기 가서 교육을 받으면은 나한테 큰 도움이 될 거라는 선배를 받았어요.
So right around then, when he was feeling the struggle, he had heard that Mr. Kim was actually running a like an acting program for professional actors, and through a mutual acquaintance, he heard about it, so he decided to just kind of, because of the feeling like, oh my gosh, I never studied acting, that was always bothering him, so he thought that it was a perfect opportunity to maybe then kind of work on the skills.
그 교육을 받으면서 저는 그 당시에 이제 김현탁 연출님의 그 작품 스타일이나 이런 것은 몰랐어요. 작품 보지 않았기 때문에. 그런데 그가 이제 대하는 그 연기에 대한 진지함, 철저함, 한국말로는 철저함이라는 게 더 그 적합한데 진지함이라고 좋고요. 그것에 굉장히 그 매혹됐다고 그럴까요? 그래서 김현탁 연출한테 앞으로 계속 그 작업에 같이 나를 써줄 수 있겠냐라고 부탁을 했죠.
그때까지는 작품이 어떤 건지
네, 작품이 모르고.
Okay, so this is very interesting because so when he started working with Mr. Kim, he really, really loved Mr. Kim's interpretation of staying, like his way of his envision of what acting was. So Mr. Jin-sung had no idea what kind of projects he worked on, but it was to the point where it didn't even matter because he loved his approach to just acting things out. So he, once again, not even knowing what kind of style he was working on, he decided to just work with him.
그로부터 이제 그 20년이
that's 20 years ago.
아, 그리고
Mhm.
누군가에 저는 제 사업을
네.
정리하고 이 작업만 같이 하는 거거든요.
And so there he decided to just wrap his business and just go into the way of the actor's life. 그러면은 가족들은 뭐라 그러지 않으셨어요? No, I just asked him, like, was your family okay with that? Like, no,
그 질문을 여기서 받을 줄 몰랐는데 가장 많이 받는 질문 중에 하나예요. 예, 그런데 제가 저희 집사람이 참 좋아해요. 우선 저희 집사람이 내가 이거 하는 활동을 좋아하고 그냥 자기를 굶기지만 않으면 된다라는 생각이.
Alright, so that's actually the question that he gets asked the most, but he wasn't expecting to get asked here. For some reason. And then, so he just basically said that his wife is happy with him being an actor, but there was one condition that I don't want to starve. Other than that, it's all good.
선배님을 맨 처음 딱 만났을 때 오셨을 때 너무 잘생기고 멋진 엔지니어다 생각했어요.
So, okay, when he first met Mr. Jin-sung, like he walked in and he was like, wow, this is a handsome engineer.
그래서 트레이닝 코스만 잘 맞추면 가시겠지. 하셔주시길.
And then he was thinking like, oh, okay, after, the program, after the acting, the coaching program, he'll go on his way back to being an engineer.
계속 하신다고 할까봐 걱정했어요.
And he was so worried that he was going to continue doing it.
그런데 그 다음 제가 아는 배우분 중에 가장 아마추어신데 저렇게 열심히 이기적으로 하시는 분을 처음 뵀어요.
And then he realized that somebody who had no professional acting background coming onto the stage, he has never seen anyone putting himself into it as much as Mr. Jin-sung.
지금 가장 많이 작품적으로나 삶에서 의지하고 있는 분이라고 생각해요.
So, and he is somebody that Mr. Kim relies on the most, both, for the stage and in life.
Thank you very much.
저야말로
And he's very thankful to Mr. Kim also.
I'm curious. So several members of the group mentioned that they were really attracted to Mr. Kim's kind of philosophy and how unique it was compared to some of the other theater companies they'd worked with or experiences. Hyun-tak, would you be willing to talk a bit about what are those principles or ideas that are most important to you as a director?
그러니까 연출인으로서 어떤 아이디어 같은 것가 제일 중요해요. 이게 다른 사람들이 전부 현석이 그 아이디어나 그런 거를 보고 스타일을 보고서 온 사람들이 있다. 어떤 생각을
일단 솔직하게 제가 재밌어야 시작을 하고요. 일단.
Okay, he's being completely honest, and he says that it has to be interesting to him.
그 재미가 굉장히 가벼운데 약간 좀 개인적인 취향인데요. 메디아 온 미디어처럼 언어적으로 오는 게 1번입니다. 유희 언어적인 1번.
I mean, it sounds like a very, like almost like a silly thing, but for him, it's the twisting of words sort of thing. And, the title of the play is called MEDEA on Media, but in Korean, it's the same words. It's MEDEA, MEDEA. So that's why, like in Korean, he was like, oh, okay, MEDEA on Media. Like, this is great, but then like in English, it kind of like changes a little bit, like with the pronunciation. So anyway, like those words are the ones that actually like attract him to an idea in the first place.
예를 들면 오델로도 O the Yellow에서 오델로, O the Yellow, 오델로.
So he's constantly like those things are going on inside his head. Like for Othello, once again, there's like a little bit of discrepancy between like the language pronunciations. But so in Korea, Othello is yellow. So and then he was thinking like, oh, the yellow. Okay, I'll put it like that. Like so those things are very important to him.
대부분 그렇게 작품을 시작하고 그 아이디어가 떠오르면 이제 어떤 이야기를 하고 싶은지 그 다음에 생각을 해요. 그러니까 오더 옐로우는 옐로우, 오케이, 인종 이렇게.
So after the words get, formed, so after he decides based on the sounding of the words, that's when he starts thinking about the whole process of how am I going to tell this story, and for the production of Othello, Oh the Yellow,
Yeah.
like he was thinking about okay, the yellow is the color, maybe we'll deal with the skin tone or like whatever that is.
그렇게 그 다음 과정에서 이제 제가 혼자 미디어 영향을 많이 받았기 때문에 이제 그거를 어떤 형식으로 가져갈까가 이제 중요한데 이제 예를 들면 미디어 형식을 많이 수용하는 거예요.
So after that gets formed, because he is so influenced by anything that has anything to do with media, he kind of goes through that channel.
그래서 이제 오더 옐로우를 자꾸 하는 게 쉬울 것 같은데 오더 옐로우 같은 경우는 당시에 그 아카데미 시상식에서 이렇게 인종차별이라고 얘기 나왔던 그래서 그거를 이제 아카데미 시상식 형식을 가져와서 오더 옐로우를 각색해서 공연했던 이제 이런 방식이 대표적으로 계속 쓰는 방식.
So for example, so for his production of Oh the Yellow, he was watching TV and he heard about, like all the racial discriminations, especially like he was hearing about the things that were talking about that were talked about for the Academy Awards. And then that's when he was like, okay, so this is what I want to start like, forming things upon.
그래서 이제 영화제에서 줄 수 있는 역사를 떠나서 그 작품들을 오델로 안에 이제 넣어서 계속 소개하면서 작품을 소개하면서 영화를 연극으로 구현하는 작업을 이제 텍스트를 가지고 합니다.
So from then on, he's kind of like letting his mind move in a way, because it was like a film, the awards thing. So he's going to look into movies, and so how are we going to bring the idea of movies into the play itself? So it's like one thing leading to another, like the step by step. That's how usually, the whole pattern of his, like putting the production together.
그 다음에 이제 연극으로 어떻게 보이게 마련될 것이냐 그 순서를 원작의 순서하고 상관없이 이제 아카데미 시상식의 순서에서 가장 드라마틱한 순서를 이렇게 영화 조합을 피스를 이렇게 편집해서 다시 연극적으로 연극에 볼 때 재미있게 만드는 작업을 이제 끝으로 합니다.
So and then he has to worry about how is this going to look on a theater. So it's once again we have like this big film awards ceremony that gets deconstructed, and for him the order of things is not important. Like it just comes, like anything just kind of comes and then goes. So with that, once again, it's just like it kind of like deconstructing and then reconstructing into something that could be shown on a bigger stage.
그리고 마지막으로 이제 관객한테 어떻게 될지 걱정하는 게 그치.
And then he starts worrying what people would think.
Great. Well, I would love to open things up if there are individuals with questions.
I have a follow-up on what you just asked.
Yeah.
We've heard the director about his approach to the rest of the crew, like what drew you in? I don't know if that's what you answered already, like what drew you in about those areas?
So
Sorry, don't answer that question, you don't answer it.
It was sort of covered, but like that's how they joined. But I mean, if you want to do like specifically.
Yeah, what stood out to them about the direction style? Like,
그러니까 그 연출님의 어떤 스타일이나 그런 거가 제일 마음에 들었는지 그거에 대해서 말씀해 주시면.
마음에
Question.
아까 연출님께서 말씀하신 대로 그 언어적인 유희를 하는 것도 그렇게 장난치듯이 하는 부분도 저는 마음에 들었고, 아까도 말씀드렸듯이 저희 게임신 같은 경우는 신체적인 움직임을 제가 그러니까 뭐라 그럴까, 인간이 할 수 있는 최대치까지 해보려고 하는, 여기까지 어떻게 구현이 될 수 있을까, 배우로서 그 게임신을 표현을 할 때 어떻게 배우가 여기까지 보여줄 수 있는가, 게임신을 진짜로 봤을 때 게임인 것처럼 하는 캐릭터처럼 보여주면서 또 어떻게 역할로서 보여줄까, 이런 부분들을 연구하고 해보는 거 몸으로써 실제적으로 해보고 그런 부분들이 저한테는
Okay, so she's basically saying that she was drawn to the way he kind of like played with words, which was like really, interesting to her. But then when he interprets different scenes, like, some of them are pretty outrageous. You're gonna have to come and see to, figure that out. But she was saying that the freedom that she felt as an actress to be able to imagine how extreme you can go, like whether it's physically, because it's a lot about body movement when you see the play. So she loved the freedom of being able to explore how much human bodies are capable of doing.
하나만 더 하면요. 아까 오더엘로 말씀하셨죠. 제가 막 좋아했던 영화들이, 그러니까 연출님이 그때 이 영화를 가져와서 이 영화를 해보자, 이 영화를 해보자 하잖아요. 우연찮게 제가 아주 좋아했던 영화들이 많았어요. 영화적 성향도 조금 비슷한 게 있었던 것도.
And for the play, Oh the Yellow, it was putting a whole bunch of movies, just different movie scenes that kind of get put into a play. And so they were watching a lot of movies to pick which ones like to choose, and their taste kind of like there was a lot of similarity in the way they were thinking and all that. So she really enjoyed that, so. And I think it's just like going to that extreme and just being able to just explore all your ideas without having to feel like, oh my God, is it gonna work or not? Like it will work, that kind of mentality.
그 연출님 작업 같은 경우는 그 서사적으로 스토리라인이 아니라 그냥 색채 재구성하는 실험적인 작품을 많이 한 것 같아요. 근데 그게 굉장히 짜릿하고 좀 모험적이기 때문에 하는 배우로서의 이제 흥미로운 게 있는 것 같아요.
Yeah, so she says that, yeah. Sometimes it gets scary, like, but then like, as an actress, once again, just having the freedom of being able to, just let your imagination go. That was really special to her. So it's basically like the same thing that you can try whatever, as far like that extreme that your mind, wants to try. So just having the freedom, she, is very, very attracted to.
그래서 접근 방법들을 이렇게 제시해 주시는데 이게 가능하다고? 이게 구현이 가능해지네? 라는 순간들이 되게 그러니까 아이디어나 이게 독창적이고 창의적이신 것 같아요. 그래서
So she's saying that when Mr. Kim first comes up with an idea, sometimes she's like, is that even possible? And then somewhere along the line, it becomes possible. And there's the satisfaction of like, oh my God, like we can do this. So that is really, really special to her. Yeah, yes. Should we ask him first or should we? Yeah.
어떤 작품을 시작했을 때, 내가 제대로 접근하고 있나, 내가 제대로 연기를 하는 걸까 하는 거에 대해서 항상 불안해요, 시작할 때는.
So when he is introduced to a project, he feels very insecure about his approach to the character.
그래서 나의 연기에 어떤 확신은 없지만 연습을 진행하다 그럼에도 불구하고 내가 연출님한테 어떤 영향을 끼치고 있다는 것을 느낄 때가 있어요. 그때 뭐라 그럴까요? 어떤 창작을 하는 기쁨이라 그럴까? 배우로서 그것이 굉장히 커요.
Okay, for him, the most special thing is that when he's working with Mr. Kim, sometimes there are moments when he feels like he is actually giving Mr. Kim a little bit of influence on certain things. And that's when, as an actor, those are the most special moments for him. The fact that, because Mr. Kim has, some extreme ideas and, he's very like, he's got his own style, he's got his own everything. but then he's still open to the actor's idea of different things. So, and those are the very, very special moments that they have.
So after seeing the full video of this piece, I'm a little bit afraid of Medea. And so I'm glad to see you smiling. Yeah, she is a baller. Is there a word for that in Korean?
메리 커플은 그 메디아 본 다음에 미옥 씨가 너무너무 겁났었대요. 그런데 여기에서 막 웃는 모습 보고 그러니까, 근데 그 그냥 아주 그냥 강한 그 여자 있잖아요. 그게 한국말로도 표현이 있을 텐데, 그렇게 느꼈다고. 근데 여기서 이렇게 웃는 거 보고 있으니까 너무 좋다고요.
Thank you.
So I'm curious to hear how you decided to build that character. She's so powerful.
그러니까 그 메디아 캐릭터가 엄청나게 파워풀한 그런 캐릭터잖아요. 그걸 어떻게 빌드했나?
처음부터 그렇게 쉬운 작업은 아니었어요. 저도.
So this was not an easy project, to tackle.
나는 신체적으로 좀 움직인다고 생각을 하고 있었지만 이제 막상 시작해 보니까 아직 뭐 조금 그러니까 부족했던 부분도 있었고.
So she's pretty good with anything that, with the body movements and anything that's like, like you get the physical, the skills. But then when she first started working on it, I mean, she kind of felt like, oh my goodness, like I need to work harder, for some of the scenes. And she felt herself a little bit inadequate in that, sense.
보신 대로 공연에서는 굉장히 이제 파워풀하고 무섭고 이런데 역할 자체가 또 메디아는 역할이 좀 그런 역할이기도 하고. 근데 저는 그렇게까지 그러지는 않고 원래 성격이나 그런 것들이. 근데
I feel like I need to translate right here, so she's like, Medea is a very powerful woman and a very scary woman, but in life, I'm not really like that. And then that's when,
그래서 이제 그 역할을 이제 신체적으로도 연습을 통해서 이제 연출한테 이렇게 혼나기도 하고 이런 식으로 하면서 점점 더 내가 무서워지지 않았나.
So through the rehearsals, after getting criticized by Mr. Kim, that she feels that she got scarier as the rehearsals went on.
나의 강함은 이분도 어택이라고.
So her strength, her power, her powerfulness actually came from him.
Thank you.
For yelling at her.
개인적으로.
근데 하면서 연출은 참 뭐라 그럴까 아이디어 내지만 사실 할 수 있는 게 아무것도 없거든요.
So he feels like as a director, he can put ideas out, but there is not a whole lot of things that he can do.
네, 아무것도 할 수가 없기 때문에 모르겠어요. 그러니까 아무것도 모르는 상태로 배우들을 만나는 거거든요.
So he's basically meeting the actors without knowing what to expect, how the acting part is going to go.
시작부터 이미 불가능해요, 뭔가가.
So he has this premonition that, everything is impossible here, like nothing's gonna go right. That's how he starts.
연극 그 부분이 너무 멋진 것 같아요. 불가능한 걸 가능하다고 생각하고 하는 것들이.
And then, so what draws him to the theater is that first feeling of this is impossible, but somehow it becomes possible.
그래서 배우분들한테서 저는 임파서블을 시작하는데 배우들을 만나면서 임파서블에서는 가장.
So when he feels like this is not gonna work out, this is impossible, it's the actors who make it possible for him, to show him that it is possible.
그래서 그것 때문에 훨씬 더 강하게 보여주면 더.
So that's where he pushes more and more because so that's how the powerful figures become more powerful and all that.
I have a question for the youngest actress. Like, what made you sort of get into acting, and unlike him going into engineering or STEM first, like And what did her parents have to say as well? Because we have students who would like to go into acting, but might be afraid of their parents.
Absolutely. 그러니까 처음에 그러니까 그 연극 하겠다고 그렇게 들어갔을 때 그러니까 부모님들 누가 그러셨나?
모두가 세계적으로 모두가 다 부모님이 걱정을 하시는 거 맞는 것 같아요.
This is a universal theme of learning about their kids going into the theater.
하지만 어렸을 때부터의 좀 영향인지 저희 부모님들은 좀 굉장히 열려 있는 분들이셨거든요.
But fortunately, her parents were very open-minded about different things.
제가 그 많은 것들 중에 연극을 선택을 하는 것을 믿어주셨던 것 같고,
And she believed in her decision of wanting to become an actress.
모든 일에 다 확신은 없겠지만, 그러니까 모두도 다 그러니까 미래가 걱정되는 거잖아요. 근데 어떤 자기가 하고자 하는 그게 명확히 있으면 그건 그냥 다 자기 선택으로 할 수 있다고 생각합니다.
So she believes that there are no guarantees in life, regardless of which field you go into. But if you truly believe that, that's what you want to do and that's what will make you happy, then it becomes easier to, go into that and try your best.
하지만 그러니까 어떠한 자기만의 신념이나 그거는 계속해서 무슨 직업을 하던 계속 만들어 가야 하는 과정이라고 생각해요. 그런 자생력을 확보할 수 있는 또 그거를 이렇게 선배님들이나 이제 같이 작업하시는 분들과도 계속 나눠야 하고 계속 발전시켜야 하는 거.
So the important thing is that you have to believe in your decision and regardless, once again, of like which field you go into, and if you believe in what you chose, and especially when you meet people who you can share ideas and you can share the philosophy with, it makes it better.
굉장히 많은 배우 한국에서 많은 젊은 배우들이 연극을 하러 오는데 왜 연극을 하러 오지 하는 생각을 가질 때가 훨씬 많아요.
So when the young actors and actresses come into his studio, he always wonders what is drawing them to the theater, and that's like versus like the other type of acting, whether it's TV acting, which is huge in Korea, by the way.
근데 한 오래 못 하거든요. 사실은 많은 분들이 그렇게 와서는 올해 어느 단체든지 쉽게 적응을 못해요.
So when people, especially like the young, actors who are starting out, when they come, especially to the theater part, not a lot of them last,
근데 이제 이렇게 남아있는 친구분들이 있잖아요. 그럼 진짜 대단하다고 느껴요.
So he feels that ones who do stay, like, whether it's like over 5 years or whatever, who do decide to stay in the theater world, he has a lot of respect for.
그래서 지금 여기 있는 영현이라는 배우가 저한테 무대 위에서 놀랍게 했던 게 분명히 있거든요. 무대 위에서.
And there was a part when she's acting, he was blown away by her. So I think he's going to talk about whatever that was.
여기서 얘기하고 싶은 건 근데 이 친구의 어머니를 뵀을 때가 그 모든 것에 100배는 더 놀랬던 거예요. 너무 연기자라고 배우 같으셨어요.
네, 맞아요. 저희는
Okay, so the way she was acting and all that, he was pretty much blown away, despite the age and experience, because she was just out of school. But then when he met her mother, she was more of an actress than anybody in China.
She's the actress.
Yeah.
I was surprised.
근데 연극 전공은 아니신데 그렇게 표현하시는 것 같아요.
그래서 이 연기를 하려면 확실히 부모님이 되게 중요하구나. 반대를 떠나서 굉장히 중요하다.
So in order to act, so because he was so blown away by his, her mother, who was like a natural actress, like without any kind of training or any, like who just acts in life, you know. And so anyway, so he thought about how important it is to like having what kind of parents you have in order like for actresses and you know for actors.
혹시 여기서 연극을 전공하신 분들
So she wants to know if there's anybody who is majoring in theater or like acting.
Next slide.
근데 그건 있는 것 같아요. 그러니까 많은 학생 친구들이 있으니까 그 학교 울타리 안에서의 생각과 구분지어서 이제 사회에 나왔을 때 그거는 진짜 이제부터 그 질문을 만들어 가야 되는 것 같아요. 제가 이전에 연극을 생각했던 것과 사회에 나오고 나서의 연극은 지금부터 만들어 가야 하는 거거든요.
Okay, she wanted to ask everybody because she was kind of thinking when she did acting in school in college, you know, and you feel like you're doing a whole lot of things and all that, but you know, like it's a whole different story, like you're just doing productions within the school environment versus when you're out there, you know, in the real world of theater. And so that's when that's when she started really learning about everything, you know, about acting.
We have time for probably one more question.
Kind of going off of that previous question, why the theater, right? So TV and movies are a very large part of the Korean culture, pop culture. We consume it, I consume it. But why the theater versus TV?
TV하고 영화 같은 게 지금 상대에서 엄청나게 크잖아요. 그런데 왜 연극?
상당히 어려운 질문.
Yeah, it's a very tough question.
저는 저 개인적인 얘기로 할게요. 저는 어렸을 때부터 혼자 굉장히 오래 있었어요. 부모님이 일을 하셨어요.
Okay, so he's gonna like you know this is just his personal reason. For him, he spent a lot of time alone because both of his parents had to work, so he had a lot of time to himself.
그래서 TV나 이런 매체가 진짜 리얼 세상인 줄 알았어요.
So he was consuming so much TV that that became his real world.
그래서 일상의 학교를 다니거나 이런 게 전부 너무 낯설었어요. 그래서 TV를 봤을 때 너무 편하다.
Okay. So he was so comfortable with watching TV that the real world, like going to school and like just living his life, seemed very distant to him. So that was like the make, you know, the make believe world, you know, versus the TV, the real world.
그게 좀 일반적으로 봤을 때 문제라는 걸 좀 늦게 알았어요, 제 스스로.
And then he realized much later in life that was a problem.
이미 연극을 하고 난 다음에
After he did like many plays, he realized.
그래서 그러고 보니까 한국에 이런 영화나 이런 것들이 너무 많더라고요. 그러니까 저한테 자양분이었던 거죠, 그게 저는. 저한테 자료가 영감을 주는 게 돼버린 거예요. 그게 많은 게 좋은 거죠, 그러니까 저한테는 한국에서.
Because there are so many TV programs and there's so many movies in Korea. So when he realized that, you know, that he was consuming way too much of, you know, like the media, it was actually a really good thing for him because that's where he draws his influence and, you know, that's where the reality is.
저는 그런 거에 대해서 사실은 같이 공존할 때 한국이 그런 게 많기 때문에 앞으로는 지금은 그렇지만 앞으로는 연극이 굉장히 그런 것들을 담아내서 얘기해 줄 수 있는 중요한 부분이 되지 않을까라고 생각합니다.
And he believes that in the future, because there are so many TV programs that people love, you know, internationally, and a lot of TV movies emerging. I mean, the Korean movies. He feels that it's the theater that's going to grow bigger, and he feels that by using those, you know, the different types of media in them, he has a lot of hope that will help to grow the theater, you know, world of Korea.
그래서 지금은 너무 연극하길 잘했다고 생각하고 있습니다.
So he feels that he made a very wise decision of going into the theater.
Excellent. Well, thank you all so much. Well, again, if you'd like to see the performance, you should see this performance. It's Wednesday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. We'd be
It is
delighted to have it there.
crazy. Yeah, you guys will love it.
누구도 걱정할 거라고 나.
Thank you so much.
And he's gonna start worrying, like, who's gonna show up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.